with the Iran war entering its fourth week and its impact felt on the global economy, President Donald Trump has now said that Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth was the first to push for military action. Just hours after singling out Hegseth, Trump claimed that Iran's retaliatory strikes across the Gulf came as a surprise to him. And this time around, in a major development, US President Donald Trump has reined his guns at Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth, saying that he was the first one to push for a military action in the war against Iran. Just hours before singling out Hegseth, Donald Trump claimed that Iran's retaliatory strikes across the Gulf came as a surprise to him. I'm being joined by my colleague Varghese Ibrahim on the phone line. Varghese, when Israel was accused of dragging US into the war, Netanyahu said that nobody can tell Mr. President what to do. Looks like that nobody is US's Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth.
Well, it looks like there is no one who is in fact taking a look at how this war has in fact emerged, because on one big question being asked by most of the investors, especially those who are said to be a constituency for Trump, has been why did we go to war with Iran, especially disturbing the entire oil market and also with regard to the U.S. economy and in fact the world economy as well. So it was not a situation where they could in fact explain about why they went for this particular war. And interestingly enough, at the roundtable conference that Trump had in fact held, he stands up and he says the narrative that in fact moves towards it, and it is about how the White House has in fact shifted the narrative on it. He in fact says that when the war was about to start, he in fact did call the chief of staff. He did call the Department for War, and it was Pete Hegseth who first, in fact, got up and said when there was a nuclear threat that let's do it. So that's how it in fact moved in place. And Pete Hegseth was the first person to say that it's time that we in fact move ahead with it, and that's the advice that Trump had taken, and therefore the war had taken place. So Hegseth has been seen as one of those persons who had advised Trump to go ahead with the war, targeting Iran and the kind of situation that we in fact emerge in.
And it's also coming out that Trump has claimed that Iran's retaliatory strike across the Gulf was a surprise to him. So as the war in the West Asia is being dragged on, claims are all being made that US must have underestimated Iran. So now with Trump's confession and claim that he did not expect Iran to retaliate and strike across the Gulf, what is the situation? What is the position of US right now in the war?
Well, the position of U.S. is quite interesting to see, though the U.S. has been claiming that there have been objectives that have been met, especially with regard to the military capacity being degraded. It is to be seen how those military capacities are still functional, because Iran seems to be, in fact, in a position to threaten Tel Aviv, launch missiles as well, and also threaten the Strait of Hormuz. So have the objectives been met is the big question.
Stay with me on the conversation. We have Donald Trump's bite coming in where he is saying that Pete Hegseth was the one who pushed for the military action. Let's listen in.
And then unfortunately I called Pete, I called General Kane, I called a lot of our great people. We have great people, and I said, let's talk. We got a problem in the Middle East. We have a country known as Iran that for 47 years has been just a purveyor of terror. And they're very close to having a nuclear weapon. We can keep going and get that 50,000 up to 55 and 60 is no end. Or we can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem. And Pete, I think you were the first one to speak up. And you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon. So we are now having really good discussions.